The history of late-night television is built on the glitz of the spotlight, but its foundation rests on a bedrock of absolute authority, unyielding loyalty, and the devastating power of a single quiet phone call. For 30 years, NBC became an empire governed by one undisputed ruler whose nightly sign-on commanded the attention of tens of millions of American living rooms. To perform on that stage was the ultimate validation for any entertainer, a career-making moment that could turn an obscure club act into an overnight national sensation, with nothing more than a wave toward the couch. The host wielded this influence with an expert blend of Midwestern charm and sharp instinct, creating a cultural institution where the highest law was loyalty to the desk. When an artist aligned with that vision, the rewards were boundless, but stepping outside the boundaries of that unwritten contract carried a professional price that few could survive. The industry watched in fascination as careers were elevated or quietly dismantled based on the personal favor of the man who controlled the midnight hours, proving that behind the polished monologue lay a fierce determination to maintain absolute command over his kingdom. The ultimate standard of late-night comedy was redefined during the golden age of broadcasting, establishing a benchmark against which every subsequent host would be measured. Millions of viewers turned to the screen every evening to find comfort in a familiar routine of topical monologues, playful banter with the band leader, and relaxed, spontaneous conversations with the biggest stars of Hollywood. The master of ceremonies transformed the format into a sophisticated art form, hiding a calculating, brilliant business mind beneath an easygoing public persona. To the audience, he was America's trusted companion, a dryly witty guide through the cultural shifts of the late 20th century. To the entertainment community, however, he was a kingmaker whose favor was the single most valuable currency in the industry. A successful debut on the program could guarantee sold-out theater runs, lucrative network development contracts, and decades of steady work across the country. This immense power created an environment of intense competition and deep anxiety backstage, where writers, booking agents, and performers operated under the constant awareness that their entire livelihood could hinge on a single 6-minute segment. The internal politics of the network production offices were governed by strict, unwritten rules designed to preserve the show's dominance and protect the status of its central star. While the broadcast appeared loose, casual, and completely improvised, it was actually the product of meticulous planning, aggressive talent scouting, and a protective inner circle fiercely dedicated to the host's interests. The production team maintained a relentless standard of quality, screening hundreds of acts to find the precise comedic voices that would appeal to the host's specific sensibilities. This rigorous process ensured that every guest who walked through the curtain was prepared to meet the highest standards of the medium, creating a legendary track record of discovering generational comedic voices. The true measure of success on the program, however, went far beyond the initial booking or even the laughter of the studio audience. The definitive indicator of a performer's standing was whether they were invited to sit on the couch after their performance, a rare honor that signaled the host's personal endorsement and opened the door to regular return appearances. The bond between a legendary mentor and a rising star can reshape an entire industry, especially when built on shared ambition and an undeniable creative chemistry. In the mid-1960s, a sharp, fast-talking female comedian from New York arrived on the late-night scene, bringing an aggressive, self-deprecating style that challenged the conventional standards of mainstream comedy. Her early career had been a relentless struggle through smoke-filled Greenwich Village clubs, facing constant rejection in a field overwhelmingly dominated by men who viewed her sharp observations as too abrasive for television. Her breakthrough came when the late-night kingmaker recognized her raw talent, inviting her onto his stage and instantly validating her unique comedic voice before a national audience. Their interaction on that historic evening concluded with the host declaring to the country that she was going to be a massive star, a public prophecy that immediately transformed her career trajectory. Over the next 2 decades, she became a foundational pillar of the franchise, serving as the primary guest host and maintaining the program's massive ratings whenever the main star took his frequent vacations. The evolution of a professional partnership into a deep creative reliance often creates an illusion of permanent stability, blinding both parties to the shifting dynamics of the media landscape. As the regular fill-in host, the sharp-witted comedian proved she could command the massive late-night audience with the same authority as the regular star, earning the respect of network executives and advertisers alike. She saved the program during periods of declining viewership, providing an energetic, unpredictable contrast to the host's smooth, calculated delivery. Their relationship was viewed as an ironclad alliance, a rare example of mutual respect and creative harmony in a business notorious for fragile egos and bitter rivalries. She considered him her ultimate savior and professional father figure, openly attributing her survival in the entertainment industry to his initial endorsement and ongoing support. The public assumed she was the natural heir to the late-night throne, a groundbreaking pioneer poised to become the first woman to anchor a major network talk show when the reigning king eventually decided to step down from his desk. The realities of the television industry, however, are dictated by shifting executive priorities, corporate contracts, and the constant threat of emerging competition. By the mid-1980s, the landscape of broadcast media was undergoing a massive transformation with the arrival of an aggressive new television network determined to challenge the established Big Three broadcasters. This rising media conglomerate recognized that late night was the most vulnerable territory on the network's schedule, a highly profitable daypart dominated by a single aging icon whose contract negotiations were becoming increasingly complex. Network talent scouts began searching for a bold, distinctive personality capable of anchoring a counter-programming effort aimed at a younger, more modern demographic. They realized that the ideal candidate was already hiding in plain sight, performing right on the dominant network's own stage as the primary substitute host. The corporate strategists quietly approached the celebrated comedienne, offering her a historic multi-million-dollar contract to launch her own independent late-night talk show, a deal that promised her the autonomy, financial security, and permanent headliner status she had spent her entire life chasing. The decision to negotiate a major career transition in total secrecy is often driven by a desire to avoid professional interference, but it can easily be interpreted as a profound act of betrayal by those who demand absolute loyalty. The comedian found herself caught in a difficult position, aware that her current network was reluctant to offer her a permanent contract or guarantee her a future as the official successor to the late-night throne. She knew from deep industry experience that the reigning king was notoriously sensitive about any perceived threats to his territory, often reacting with cold detachment to anyone who attempted to negotiate outside his direct supervision. Fearing that the deal would be blocked or canceled if information leaked prematurely, she chose to finalize the contract with a rival network without informing her longtime mentor. She believed she was making a rational, necessary business choice to protect her financial future, operating under the assumption that her close personal friend would ultimately understand her ambition and celebrate her historic breakthrough as a female broadcaster. The fragile balance between personal gratitude and professional ambition is frequently shattered when corporate maneuvers are exposed to the harsh light of public disclosure. The news of the massive deal with the Upstart network leaked to the media just days before the official press conference, sending shockwaves through the entertainment industry and catching the veteran host completely by surprise. He learned of his close partner's departure not from a personal conversation or a private note, but from a formal statement issued by a rival corporate entity. For a man who viewed his production team as an extended family and demanded absolute, unquestioning fealty from everyone within his orbit, this sudden move was seen as an unforgivable personal ambush. The sense of violation was amplified by the realization that his own protege was transitioning from a trusted lieutenant into a direct competitor, actively plotting to steal his viewers and undermine the late-night empire they had spent decades building together. The initial reaction of a powerful media figure confronted with an unexpected challenge is often marked by an icy, definitive silence that carries far more weight than any public statement. When the comedienne finally placed a phone call to her mentor's private residence to explain her decision and express her ongoing gratitude, the conversation lasted less than a minute. The host listened with cold detachment, refused to accept her explanations, and abruptly hung up the receiver, drawing a permanent line across a friendship that had spanned more than 20 years. There was no screaming argument, no public airing of grievances, and no dramatic confrontation in the hallways of the studio. Instead, the mechanism of late-night power moved with quiet, terrifying precision to erase her presence from the network's history. The production staff received immediate, explicit instructions that she was never to be booked, mentioned, or referenced on the program again, initiating a professional blackout that would outlast the host's own legendary career. The consequences of entering into a direct late-night war with an entrenched cultural institution can be devastating for an independent performer, exposing the severe limitations of alternative distribution networks. The newly launched program debuted with massive media coverage and high initial ratings, drawing viewers who were eager to see the bold, irreverent style that had made her a standout substitute host. However, the realities of competing against a well-oiled corporate machine quickly began to take a heavy toll on the new production. The established network used its immense leverage to pressure top-tier celebrities, booking agencies, and public relations firms, forcing them to choose between appearing on the new Upstart show or maintaining their access to the dominant late-night stage. Faced with the risk of losing access to the most powerful promotional platform in show business, the vast majority of Hollywood A-listers chose to stay loyal to the reigning king, leaving the new program struggling to secure the high-profile guests needed to sustain a nightly broadcast. The financial and psychological strain of a failing television production can tear apart even the most resilient creative partnerships, leading to profound personal tragedy behind the scenes. As ratings steadily declined over the course of the first season, the network executives began interfering with the creative direction of the show, demanding changes to the format and placing immense pressure on the hosting staff. The comedian's husband, who also served as the executive producer of the program, found himself caught in the center of the corporate crossfire, his professional reputation and personal stability deeply tied to the show's survival. The mounting losses, constant negative press, and the isolating realization that their Hollywood network had abandoned them created an atmosphere of overwhelming despair. When the network finally canceled the program after less than a year on the air, the professional devastation turned into an absolute personal nightmare, culminating in a sudden tragic loss that left the entertainer completely isolated and forced to rebuild her life from the ashes of a failed ambition. The enduring nature of an industry blacklist reflects the absolute permanency of certain personal grievances within the upper echelons of the entertainment world. For nearly 3 decades, through multiple changes in network leadership, shifting cultural trends, and the eventual retirement of the legendary host, the ban remained firmly in place. The host retired to a private life of quiet seclusion, steadfastly refusing to discuss the feud or offer any public gesture of reconciliation toward his former friend. He carried the grievance with him to his grave, leaving behind a legacy defined not only by his brilliant comedic timing, but also by his unyielding capacity for cold, permanent exclusion. The comedian continued to work tirelessly in the margins of the industry, reinventing herself as a red carpet pioneer, a shopping channel mogul, and a reality television star. Yet she openly carried the emotional scar of that broken relationship for the rest of her life, frequently noting that of all her professional regrets, the loss of her mentor's blessing was the heaviest burden to bear. The final chapter of a historic television feud is rarely written by the original participants, but rather by a new generation of broadcasters who view the past through a lens of cultural preservation and artistic respect. More than 4 decades after her initial debut, and 9 years after the original host's passing, a new master of ceremonies took command of the historic late-night franchise, recognizing the profound injustice of a legendary pioneer being erased from the very stage she helped build. The new host extended a formal invitation for her to return as a featured guest. When she finally walked through that curtain once again, the studio audience erupted into a prolonged standing ovation, a powerful moment of cultural redemption that closed one of the longest and most bitter chapters in the history of American media. She passed away just 6 months after that historic return, cementing her place in television history as an indomitable force who survived the ultimate blacklist.